Is there an on button? Hello, hello? Okay, now it's on. Okay. Okay, so so get yourself into a comfortable position. But again, not too tense, not too tight. So a good position, but at the same time relaxed as much as possible, free of tension as much as possible. And then find your object, the breath. Find the place where you're able to experience it most easily, most clearly, most comfortably. And it can be helpful to just say to yourself something like, I am going to stay focused on the breath as much as I can and come back to the breath whenever my mind wanders away. So just to sort of set an intention as to what you're going to be doing. Then whenever you notice that your mind has wandered away from the breath to any other object at all, so be aware that that has happened. Don't beat yourself up because it's just normal that our mind wanders away. So just calmly, in a cool way, disengage from that other object. Let it go, put it aside, and bring your mind, your awareness back to the breath. And even if you have to do that again and again and again and again, 50 times, 100 times during this session, it's okay. It's not wrong. It's not bad. Don't be frustrated with yourself. Just bring the mind back to the breath again and again whenever it wanders away. And one thing that can be helpful is to make mental notes about what it is that your mind gets distracted to. Most of it would be thoughts. So whenever mind gets distracted to a thought, you can just say thought or thinking and then let it go and come back to the breath. There might be other things as well, like sounds or other sensations in your body or emotions. Just make mental notes as to what it is you notice happening in your mind, and then let that object go and come back to the breath. Because all those other experiences, thoughts, emotions, sounds, and so on, are transitory, impermanent. They last only a moment and then they're gone. So if we can just let them go, they will go. So if you want to move a little bit, change your position. If we can sit still, then it's easier to have a still mind. But that doesn't mean you have to be like a statue and, frozen and you can't move at all. It is okay to move, but if you do need to move, try to do it kind of slowly and mindfully and not in a fast, jerky sort of way, especially if there's other people in the room, because that can disturb them. So it is okay to move, but try to move as little as possible and move carefully and quietly and mindfully. Okay, so now we'll do meditation on the Lam Rim topic. This time we'll do meditation on the precious human life, precious human rebirth. So this time I'll be talking more. I'll be saying things and asking you to contemplate them and then give you some time to contemplate. So again, we need a certain amount of concentration to stay here and focused on the meditation. So if other thoughts come up in your mind, memories from the past or thoughts of the future, things you're going to do later today and so forth. So any kind of thoughts that are not related to the meditation, be aware that that is a distraction and let it go, put it aside, and come back to the meditation topic. So the purpose of this meditation on the precious human life is to generate a feeling of joy because we have this fantastic life, which not everybody has. And it's fantastic not just because we can have a lot of fun, but from the point of view of spiritual practice. We have the ideal life, the ideal conditions in which we can do spiritual practice and actually at least start developing our potential for enlightenment. So the Buddhist view is every living being, every sentient being, which includes all human beings, all the animals, all the ghosts, all the gods, spirits, whatever kind of being there is, every being that has a mind has the potential to transform their mind and bring their mind to a state of enlightenment, perfect peace, happiness, freedom from suffering, confusion, and so on. So this potential lies in every living being, but not every living being is in the most ideal situation in which they can realize the potential they have and start to develop it start to work on bringing it out, making it manifest. So that's the idea of a precious human life. Precious human life is a life in which we do have the ideal conditions to realize the potential we have within us and to start working on it, to start developing that potential, making it real, making it manifest. So the precious human life is defined as having 18 conditions or 18 qualities. I'm not going to go through all of these. We don't have time, but I'll just mention a few. So one is just having a human life. Being a human being is more fortunate, more advantageous than other forms of life. For example, animals. So we have in our world many animals, and many of us love animals very much. We have them as pets and as friends, and we care for them. But if one is born as an animal, one has that kind of life, and it's not very fortunate from the point of view of spiritual practice. Animals often have very difficult lives, especially those living in the wild. They have to hunt for food and at the same time try to avoid becoming food for somebody else, because the bigger animals kill the smaller animals, and human beings also like to kill animals. They go hunting and fishing, and or they kill animals for their fur or their skin, their body parts. So if one is born as an animal, one has to face that kind of danger, that kind of difficulty of being killed by bigger animals or by people, human beings. And besides that, even if one, as an animal, one has a very comfortable life and safe, protected, plenty to eat, and so on. But mentally, in terms of their state of mind, an animal's mind is not able to understand the Dharma, understand the teachings that explain what potential we have, the potential for enlightenment, and how to develop that potential through practicing concentration, developing wisdom, and so on. So an animal's mind is just not capable of doing those things. And so even though they have the potential to become enlightened, they're not able to understand that and not able to make use of it to start developing their potential. So this is one of the main advantages we have as human beings. We have a mind, generally speaking, most people have a mind that is quite intelligent. And with our human intelligence, we are able to understand such things as what leads to happiness, what leads to suffering, and understand the potential that we have to become enlightened, fully enlightened, and we can start to develop that potential. So try to get a sense of how fortunate that we are to have this human life with our human intelligence. But it's not enough just to have a human life and human intelligence. We also need access to teachings that explain about the potential that we have and how it can be developed. So these were explained by the Buddha. And it said that there are times and places where the Buddha's teachings are simply not available. So even if we were born in such a time or in such a place, we wouldn't be able to encounter these teachings, learn about them, and practice them. So we might go our whole life not able to realize the potential we have to transform our mind and what practices we need to do in order to do that. So that isn't the case with us. We are in a time and in a place where we do have access to these teachings, so we can come to know what potential lies within us, which is like a precious jewel within our minds, hidden within our minds. But we have the chance to realize this jewel we have within us, and we can start to work on bringing it out, developing it. But another factor that is needed is interest in doing this. So there are some people who hear about, read about, learn about the idea of enlightenment, and they have no interest at all. They don't see any relevance, any significance. They might not even believe it. They might reject it. So it's also important that we find that this kind of idea, having this potential within our mind to become enlightened, that we find that something interesting, something attractive, something we want to learn more about and start to practice. So that's another factor that makes us have a precious human life. But then, even if we have all the previous qualities, a human life and access to these teachings, interest in these teachings, but we still need the right external conditions and external environment. So we need to have a healthy body. We need to have basic resources like food to eat and shelter, clothing, and so forth. And we need time. If we have zero time at all to learn and to practice, then very difficult to start working on developing our potential. So that's probably not the case for most of us. I think we all do have at least healthy enough bodies and enough resources to be able to keep ourselves alive and not worry about where our next meal is coming from. And we have at least a certain amount of time each day that we can devote to learning, thinking about, and practicing the teachings that enable us to develop our potential. So this isn't true for everybody. Some people in the world have very difficult lives. All their time and energy goes into just keeping themselves alive, finding enough food to keep them going one day to the next, and taking care of their families as well. So we're quite fortunate living in such a place, such a country where we have these ideal external conditions to be able to learn and start to practice the spiritual path. So now see if you can draw a conclusion, come to a conclusion based on these contemplations. Ideally, there would be a feeling of joy, a feeling of how fortunate one is to have the life one has and all the conditions one has, and to feel a wish to use this life in a way that's wise and beneficial for oneself and for others, and not waste one's life or use it in ways that are only harmful. So if you can feel that way, if you can come to that conclusion, then just contemplate that. Otherwise, you might feel, I'm not so sure about these ideas. I want to think about them more, I want to look into it more. Then that's fine too. So just come to whatever conclusion you're able to based on what we have thought about. And then focus your mind on that conclusion. Just try to stay focused on it for just a short time. So we have another break now until 11:20, so 20 minutes. And Joseph offered to lead Kumye practice for those who would like to. Do you need the microphone, or we can turn it off? Okay.
Those will be more taller, space at the back. We'll need to stretch.
So try to have your body as relaxed as possible, free of tension. And try to have your breath, your breathing smooth, calm, also relaxed. But avoid controlling your breathing. Some people find that when they try to observe the breath, the breathing, they unconsciously or inadvertently get into a control mode, controlling the breath. So try to be aware if that is happening, and if you do notice it, try to let go of it. Remember that you don't need to control your breathing because your body knows how to breathe on its own. It's breathing all the time, even when you're asleep. There's no need to control the breath. Just let go of that tendency. Just allow the body to breathe naturally. And just let the mind rest in a light and gentle way on the breath. In other words, just lightly be aware of the breath as it's coming in and going out. And anytime you notice your mind has wandered away from the breath to some other object, just be aware that that has happened. Don't beat yourself up or get upset with yourself. And just put aside that other object. Let it go. And come back to the breath. And it's completely okay to come back to the breath again and again and again. So try to be patient with yourself, kind to yourself. And just be aware you can always come back to the breath. There's no fault, no problem with doing that. Breath is always there. It's like a home base, like an anchor, keeping us in the present, the here and now. So just keep coming back to the breath and try to stay with the breath as long as you can. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths before it wanders away. So if you wish, if you need, you can take a few moments to change your position, stretch. So in the next meditation, we'll do meditation on, again, the precious human life, but looking at it from a different point of view, because it said that the precious human life is actually very rare. It's if we think about all the living beings there are, they're numberless according to Buddhism, can't be counted, and the number of living beings, sentient beings who have a precious human life is very, 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 very small, almost non-existent. So most living beings don't have such a life. So that kind of further strengthens the sense that the life we have is really precious and really rare, and we should not waste it. And we'll also meditate on why it is so precious. So there are 3 points there. I'll mention those as we go along through the meditation, but just to, again, deepen the sense that we have a life that's similar to a very precious jewel, like a very beautiful diamond. Diamonds are rare and they're very precious for various reasons. So if you happen to have a diamond, if you inherit a diamond from your grandmother or whatever, then you should appreciate the value of that and not just throw it away or treat it carelessly. So we should similarly value the life that we have and use it wisely and not carelessly. Okay, so once again, sit comfortably. But try to have this balance between being relaxed, but also not too relaxed, not too loose, but still alert and sitting in a good posture for meditation. It's good to keep the back straight if you can, and so there are 3 reasons explained in the Lam Rim as to why the precious human life is so precious. One of these is that with the life that we have, we can achieve fortunate situations in the future. Now, traditionally, this means future lives, because according to Buddhism, we don't have only one life, but we have many lives. We've had many lives before this one, and we will have more lives after this one. So this life we have is just like a one link in a chain of many lives. And the kind of life we have, the place we're born, kind of conditions we have, and so on, are not determined by anybody else. Nobody else chooses that for us. Rather, they are determined by our karma, how we live our life, what we do in our life. That's the main factor that determines where we are born in our future lives. We'll look at karma later, but basically it means good karma leads to good situations and experiences, and bad karma leads to bad ones, suffering, problems, bad experiences. So if we want to have a good life, a good situation next time, for example, if we want to have another precious human life in our next rebirth, we have to make sure we create the right causes, good karma, basically. It means good karma. So now, having this precious human life with all the conditions that it involves means that we can learn about karma. We can learn about what actions, what karma leads to good situations, and which ones lead to bad situations. For example, killing. Killing is considered bad karma. So if we learn about that and we're able to accept it, then we can try our best to avoid killing, which includes not just humans, but also animals. So with this human life that we have, we have the chance to learn that killing and stealing and so forth are negative, and they're the cause of bad experiences. So we can consciously refrain from them, avoid them, and in that way create the opposite kind of karma, good karma, of saving lives, protecting lives, and respecting others' property and so forth. So we can live our life in such a way that we create the right causes, the right karma to have good situations in the future. So that's one reason why our precious human life is so precious, is so valuable. So getting a good rebirth next time around and in other lives in the future is considered a temporary goal. Temporary because that life will eventually come to an end. It's not permanent. It won't last forever. That life will come to an end and we'll again have to die and be reborn. So it's only temporarily a solution to our problems. And Buddhism speaks of long-term solutions such as complete liberation, nirvana, where we don't have to die and be reborn anymore and we're just free of all suffering and problems. And a further state is enlightenment, Buddhahood, where we can also work to benefit all other living beings. So those are considered long-term or ultimate goals, because once you reach those, you never come back. You're there forever. And this is another reason why our precious human life is precious, because with it, we have the chance to learn how to create the causes for liberation and enlightenment, and we can start working on that. We can start going in the direction of liberation and enlightenment, which are like ultimate long-term goals or solutions. And then the third way in which our life is precious is that each moment of our life can be used in some beneficial way. For example, just doing meditation, even for a moment, concentrating on our breath for even a moment, or generating loving kindness, compassion, even for a moment, is something very, very beneficial. Or in terms of actions, an act of giving, an act of charity, of kindness, of helping somebody, especially if we do it with an altruistic motivation, then that becomes extremely powerful, really, really good karma. So each moment of our life is precious, is valuable. We can do so much. We can do so much good for others and also for ourselves just in one moment of our life. So when we contemplate these points, we hopefully get a sense of joy, of appreciation, gratitude for the life that we have, the opportunities that we have. But we need to understand that this life is not something to be taken for granted, to be complacent about. Because once this life comes to an end, it's not definite that we will have another situation like this. It's actually very rare, very difficult to come by. One reason for that is because it's the result of causes. Being born as we are now in a human life, human body, and all the conditions that we have is the result of karma we created in past lives. The main cause of being born as a human being is the practice of ethics or morality. And that means refraining from negative actions, non-virtuous actions like killing, stealing, and so forth. So we must have done that in the past to be where we are now. And if we want to have another human life next time, we have to make sure that we create those causes now. We have to practice ethics or morality in our life, refraining from negative and doing positive actions as much as we can. And another way we can get a sense of how rare and difficult it is to get such a life is in terms of numbers. Just looking at the different kinds of beings there are and how many there are. So it is said that beings who are born in unfortunate situations, such as animals, are more numerous than human beings. So we can understand that just in terms of this planet that we live on, planet Earth. So we can count the number of human beings on this planet. There's something like 7 billion human beings, which is a lot. But the number of animals, which includes all the mammals, but also fish, birds, insects, and so on, the number of those beings is far greater than the number of human beings. We can't even count the number of animals. If we just think about, for example, in some countries where it's very warm, tropical, humid countries, there's a lot of insects, zillions of ants and termites and flies and mosquitoes and so on and so forth. So there's far more of those types of beings than there are human beings. And the oceans, most of the world is covered with water. So the oceans, the seas, the lakes, and so forth, they're full of life, full of beings. So there's many, many more beings who are born as animals than there are born as human beings. So that itself means that having a human life is quite rare and difficult to get. But then among human beings, not all human beings have a precious human life. Not all have the ideal conditions. For example, there's many who don't have access to the teachings, the information about the potential that we have for enlightenment and how to awaken this potential and develop this potential. So probably the vast majority of people in this world do not have access to that information. And even those who do have the chance to learn about it aren't necessarily interested. They're more interested in other things, such as just this present life and making money and developing their career and so on and so forth. No interest at all in enlightenment. So in that way, we can also get a sense of how rare it is to have a precious human life. So if you do get a sense of the preciousness of your life based on having thought about these things, then see if you can make a kind of resolve, a resolution to use your life wisely, using your life to do things that are beneficial for yourself, beneficial for others, for the world, and if possible, using your life to start to awaken your potential for enlightenment. Start to work in the direction of enlightenment. So now let's conclude this meditation and also conclude our morning activities by making a dedication. The positive energy we have accumulated by doing these different meditations prayers and so on. So may this stay with us and not be lost or forgotten, but continue to help our mind to grow, to develop towards enlightenment, and also to make our lives beneficial for others as much as we can. So you can imagine the positive energy we've created going out, radiating out from us to all the beings everywhere in the world and the universe, wishing that it will help them to find greater peace and happiness and be free of their suffering, their problems, and the causes of suffering, which are ignorance and other disturbing, mistaken states of mind. Okay, so now we have a break, a lunch break until 1:30. 1:30 we'll have a sort of discussion and question and answer. So you can, any questions you might have about the meditations, the material, you can ask. So for lunch, you can go out if you wish, but you can also stay here and we'll share whatever food was brought upstairs. I forgot to ask if to make sure you bring vegetarian food. Did anybody bring non-vegetarian food? Okay, so good. Okay, so we'll share the food that's available upstairs. And again, try to keep silence. It might seem strange to be eating with people and not talking, because that's not our usual. Our usual way is to eat and talk. And but when we do retreats, it's nice to try to keep silence even while eating. If there's some, again, necessary talking that needs to be done, then that can be done. But just try as much as possible to keep silence, and you can just practice mindfulness. Be aware of what's happening in your mind as we're eating. And it's also nice to, and one contemplation that can be done while eating is just have an awareness of where the food comes from. You know, of course, it comes from the supermarkets and so on. But before that, the food that we eat comes from other people, mostly farmers and also animals, if we eat animal products like cheese and so on, eggs. So, so there are other people, other beings that work and make it possible for us to have this food. So it's good to have a sense of awareness of that and appreciation for those other beings, and also feel a sense of, well, I want to do something for others. I would like to give something back to others for what they do for me. So that's a nice thing you can contemplate, just that feeling of kindness and appreciation for others and wishing to benefit others with your life. Okay, so enjoy.